Today's daf is Masechta Chullin Daf Yud Gimel, number 13, and we're going to begin from Daf Yud Beis and Beis and make it bigger over here. Very simple. The Gemara is dealing with a question. We learned yesterday that if you throw a knife against the wall and it shechts, right? It shechts. That's a kosher shchita according to Rab Nosson. If you throw a knife as a maybe you're on a date or something, and that's what they do on dates. They throw a knife and it cuts an animal, it's kosher shchita. However, by kachim, you have to have in mind that you're shechting, so it needs more of a thought process. The question is, so Omer Rab Chi bar Abba by Rab Yochanan, cotton, if a cotton shechts a carbon oila, yesh lo machshava, ein lo machshava, does his thought process, and here we're going to learn machshava means actually saying out. If the cotton says, I'm shechting l'shem carbon oila, does that work or not? Amalei, so Amalei Rabami said to Rabbi Yochanan, what kind of question is that? V'tiboyale masa. Let us ask the question whether if a cotton does an action with the words, is it worth it? Anything? Is it whatever a cotton does? Does it have any effectiveness? So you didn't ask that question. Why didn't you ask the same question when the cotton does an action plus he expresses his words? Because you knew of a Mishnah. So then that same Mishnah will give you your answer too. The Tnan, we learned in the Mishnah, Yesh lahem masa. A cotton has masa. Machshava nami lo tibayu. Don't ask me the question about machshava. The Tnan ein lehem machshava. That a cotton has no machshava. That means his words are useless, but his words with a masa is worthwhile. How do you know that? The Tnan we learned in the Mishnah. Now, when you, let's say, making a keli, it doesn't bekabel toma unless you say, oh, now it's a finished keli, and therefore I'm going to use it for such and such, and therefore it's makabel toma. Other than that, it's not makabel toma. So let's say you have an alam rima ve'egesh shechakam tinoikis lama ben offer. Let's say you have, a fruit with a hard shell, like a walnut or a pomegranate, and the cotton, scooped it out and made it into like a coffee cup to measure dirt. So he says, oh, I just did a maisa. I finished this keli, and now I'm going to use it as something to measure dirt in a sandbox. Or to be use it for a scale. Tumeim, it's tamei b'pnei shehem yesh lahem masa, because their action with their words effectuate this vessel to be a keli. The ein lehem, we go to Yagimel al Aleph. The ein lehem achshava. And therefore, if just by verbalizing something without doing any actions, they're worthless. Cotton is worthless. For example, if a cotton founds a scooped out walnut, right? The cotton, by saying, oh, I'm going to use this now as my sandbox pail, it's not going to make it a tomei, because his words alone doesn't make anything unless he combines it with an action. Amalei. So what's your question, Rabbi Yochanan? It's an open Mishnayos. Learn Masechta Kelim. Amalei. So Rabbi Yochanan said, my question was not when the cotton just says a word and doesn't do anything. Certainly that's worthless. When the cotton, this is a third possibility, where the cotton doesn't say a word, but you can tell why he's doing something. For example, let's say somebody's carbon oila was in the south of the base of Mikdash. Shechting it in the south is no good, right? It says v'shachat oisay tzafayna. So what did the cotton do? The cotton brought it to the north, ushchata, and shechted it. So there he exactly shechted the carbon in the north. And his action by schlepping the behemoth from the south to the north probably indicates that he understands this is a carbon oila. So even if he shechted it without saying, oh, I'm shechting this as a carbon oila, it should be kosher. Since he brought it to the north and shechted it, then he obviously had kavana. maybe the whole point of him schlepping it to the north of the Beis Hamikdash, the north side of the courtyard, is because he didn't. Maybe in the south it was there was a rain or something was crowded there, so he schlepped it to the north, but not because it was a carbon and that's why he's shechting it. So is that a good machshava? In other words, would that make it a kosher carbon oila where the cotton schlepped something to the north and shechted it, but he didn't say it was for a carbon oila? So that was Rabbi Yochanan's question. Says the Gemara, Haname Amru Rabbi Yochanan Chadazimna. Rabbi Yochanan said this one time. He already explained that, and that he says that it is good. The Tanan we learned in the Mishnah. We learned a fruit is not susceptible for tumah unless it comes in contact with certain types of liquid. One of those liquids is dew. So Hamala Peirosav Lagag, someone who brings his fruits to the roof. He brings his fruits to the roof of his house because he wants to dry the fruits out, to take the bugs out of it. Now, v'yorad aleim tal, and dew falls on the fruits. That doesn't make it susceptible to tumah because he didn't bring it up to the roof so it should catch water, and therefore that's not a liquid that's going to make the fruit susceptible to tumah. If his intention was to bring the fruits to the roof so that dew should fall on the fruits, that's of course that will make those fruits susceptible to tumah. Now the Mishnah says, if the cheresh and cotton schlep it up, even if they say they're bringing it up to the roof so dew should happen, so einam bechiyutan, that doesn't make them chiyutan. That doesn't make it susceptible to tumah. Even though they say, I'm bringing it up to the roof so that dew should fall on it, it's not susceptible to tumah because the act of bringing it up to the roof is not a clear act, because that kind of act could be used, maybe could be interpreted as he's bringing it up for bugs, to dry it out from bugs. Because in this case, the cotton will have, if he does a masa with a dibar, if he does an action with words, it's effective. But if he has just a dibar without a masa, this helam is not considered a masa. Bringing it up is not considered a masa. It's not considered an action. So therefore, it's not effective. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, if after he brought those fruits up to the roof, and he said he's bringing it up so that dew should fall on it, so he has the words, and then he turns the fruits to face different directions of the dew, so there he shows the action, a clear action, together with his words, it makes it effective. So therefore, it makes it effective. But now Rabbi Yochanan is saying more than that. If it's a clear action, even if he did not say that he's using it for dew, that's the point. If he just was turning the fruits and did not say that he's doing it for dew, Rabbi Yochanan will say, Harei zeh b'chiyutin, that makes it susceptible to tumah. So we see from there that if a cotton has a pretty clear action, so then if the cotton has a pretty clear action, it's effective. So let's bring it over here. By the carbon oila, if a cotton will schlep a carbon from the south to the north, doesn't say anything, and then shechs it, so that's somewhat of a clear action that he wants to do a carbon. So maybe in that case would be kosher. So the Gemara says that is the question. Hachi kamebayale, d'oraisa or d'rabbanan? Do we say that the cotton with ma'isa machshava nikar b'shleich ma'asav, is that a din d'oraisa that we'll accept it, and therefore the carbon would be kosher in that case with the oil bringing it from south to north, or d'rabbanan? We only say these things by d'rabbanan if we're doing it l'machmir. For example, by trying to say something is susceptible to tumah, so then a mais machshavte nikeres mitoich machshava, that would be considered enough. to be machbir, but not to go lenient. So let's just see clearly in the illustration over here. The illustration here, I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay, you have a cotton. Here's a cotton. If he does just the machshava, it means I'm going to call it a machshava. But if he just says words, it doesn't make it effective. Let's go to the end. If he goes words plus a machshava, that means a maisa plus words, does an action and words. That's good. The question was, if he just did an action and did not say the words, but you can see it's a pretty clear action. So the Gemara says it's effective, but we're not sure if it's effective midai raisa or just the Rabbanan going strict. By Rabbi Yochanan asked Rav Nachman Yitzchak Masnei Haki. Amar Rabbi Barabba by Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rav Nachman Yitzchak version of Rabbi Yochanan's question. Koshin yesh le masa, ein le masa. Amar le Rabami tidaboy le machshava. Does a cotton have a masa with a dibur? So Rabbi Yami says, why don't you ask about machshava? A dibur alone. In other words, same start off place, but Rabbi Yochanan's question was the cotton. You tell me his question was, does a cotton's maisa with a dibur effective? And Rabami answered it. Look in the Mishnayos. The Mishnayos says if a cotton digs out a pomegranate or a walnut and says that he's going to use it as a sandbox keli, so it's susceptible to matuma. So that is the question. I know that a maisa and a machshava it's effective, but hachi kamibale deraisa derabbanan. Is it deraisa or derabbanan? And upashalein, this is the bottom line. Yesh lehem masa. This is the bottom line. How to remember it. If a cotton does an action plus a words, so then it's effective even with deraisa. So therefore, if the cotton schleps an animal to the north and then says, I'm shechting a carbon oila, certainly it's kosher. If he just says, if he didn't do any action and he just says words, I'm shechting for a carbon oila, it's not kosher, there's nothing. It's not effective even for anything derabbanan. If you can see a clear action, but he doesn't say what he's doing, midaraisa ainloi. Midaraisa it doesn't work. Midrabanan yeshloi. Midrabanan it would work. This comes up in other areas like Natilas Yadayim, where if a cotton pours the water on top of you, you need a machshava. You can't just have like a gorilla pour water for you for Natilas Yadayim. It has to be a human being. But is the cotton enough to be a person, a human being, to pour Natilas Yadayim for a gadol? So since the whole Natilas Yadayim is a din d'Rabbanan, it would work. Midaraisa it wouldn't work by the case of the carbon oila. If he doesn't say it, if he just schleps a behemoth from the south to the north and didn't say anything, and then shechted it, it's not a kosher. The whole point is that kochim needs machshava, as opposed to what? Shechting a chulin. If you shecht a regular animal, so then you don't need to have machshava. Even if you throw a knife, it works. So how do I know if I throw a knife on a carbon, like I'm throwing darts, and it shechted a karchim, that's disqualified. The Torah tells you, so you have to shecht it and have in mind that you're shechting an animal, a kachim animal. Okay, so the Gemara says, okay, you find it one time. How do you know b'diavad it's possible? Because the pasuk says, you have to shech it with intention, and therefore that's what we say. How do you know it's b'diavad no good? Because by karchim it has to say it twice in the Torah, and it says the Gemara shecht it only with your intention. Okay, so that ended that sugya. New Mishnah. Shchitas goy, if a goy shechts a behema, let's say the Jew hired a goy to shecht a behema, nevela, it's nevela, matama bamasa, And it's like a regular nevela that if you carry it, right, it's a dead carcass, and if you carry it, you become tamei, even if without touching it, because it's invalid shechita. So but you're allowed to benefit from it. So the Gemara says nevela and isra ano aloi. It's only an isra nevela, but not you're not prohibited from benefiting from it. Mantana, who's the author of our Mishnah? Because I would say it's asabana, because maybe the machshava of the guy, he's thinking that it should be avodah zara. The Rabbi Lazar amastam machshavas goy avodah zara. Even a regular guy is thinking about avodah zara. So even if a Jew shechted the animal belonging to a guy, that animal is asar bahana, because the thought of a guy is for avodah zara, and therefore it should be asar bahana. Rabbi Ami Amar, so we don't go like Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Ami Amar, Rabbi Ami says hachi katani. Yes, we do go like that. We don't go like Rabbi Lezer. We don't go like Rabbi Lezer, but there's another point of the Brisa, the Mishnah. A goy that shechs, it's mutar bahana. We don't assume that the goy had intention for an avodah zara. But a Jew who's like Christian, let's say early Christian, like, and he's shechting for avodah zara, then we assume that for sure la avodah zara. Hachi ktani. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Shchit is goy nevela. When a goy shechts, it's nevela. Hadamin, a Jewish person that's really addicted to avodah zara or Christian la avodah zara, then it becomes even asar bahana. So in a certain way, a Jew that converted is even worse than a guy. A guy will shecht, okay, I don't care. But a Jew that turns into a min, a heretic, so then he's even worse. This coincides with what the Brisa said. Shchitas min la avodah zara. Pita paskuti yena yainesach. A Christian that shechts, it's like he's shechting for avodah zara. His bread is the bread of a goy. His yain is like asar ba'ana sefarav. Even if he wrote a sefer Torah, if he had Paul writing a sefer Torah, so then Sifra of Kaisman, it has to be burnt. You have to destroy it. Even though it says Shem Hashem, it looks very good. Peirosev Tavalim, and his Peiros, we don't for sure he didn't even take Maisrus with it. But Yeshoim and others say, Af, we go to Amid Beis, Bon of Mamzerim, his children are Mamzers. Because when he's a Christian, probably he let his wife, a Jew, let his wife be Mizana. The Tanakama holds Ishtei Mafke. He doesn't go that far to let his wife be Mizana, so his children are not Mamzerim. But nevertheless, a Jew that converts into Christianity, if he shechs, he's for sure thinking of avodah zara. He's better than a guy. He's worse than a guy, I should say. Amamar, shchitas guy nevela. So frag the Gemara, why is a guy when he shecht, it's only an nevela? Maybe he's addicted to avodah zara, and it should be asar ba'ana. That's what I said. The goyim are not addicted to avodah zara. Says the Gemara in the Ika, we see that they are addicted to avodah zara. Ema, we let us say, ein roiv umas minim. Most goyim are not minim. Why? They know about avodah zara, but they're like non-frum goyim, and therefore, when they're shechting, they're not shechting to do something for the service of an avodah zara. Savalaki hada amar b'chiba Rambam Rabbi Yochanan. Goyim shebechutz la'aretz, a goy that lives outside of Israel, lav ovdei avodah zara. They don't really worship avodah zara. Ela minig aviseim b'yadeim. They're just following the custom. They don't even know why they're doing things. But a Jew that converts into a Christianity or something like that, and he shecht, he's worse. Amar Rav Yosef bar Menyuni, Amar Rav Nachman, ein minin ba'umas. A guy is not addicted to avodah zara. So what does that mean? Lamai. So we're going to try to understand what Rav Nachman wanted to say. That means, or do you want to say that his shechita is good? I think what they're trying to say is, right. So Rav Nachman disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, we're going to learn Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan. He holds that a goy could be addicted to avodah zara, and therefore his shchita should be asur b'hana. So, but he just said, Lamai, ilem l'shchita, hashta shchitas min Yisrael amret dasira, goy d'mebaya. You told me that if a Jewish min avodah zarah, so Rav Nachman is saying like this. He's saying that if you know a goy, you know for a fact that this goy is addicted to avodah zarah, we don't apply that din. Says the Gemara, what's that? What does that mean? If this goy shechts, and we know he's addicted to avodah zarah, certainly it should be asa. Hashta shchin min the Yisrael amrit asura, the goy mebaya, when a Jew converts to Christianity, you say when he shechts, it's asa b'hana. If the guy who from childbirth was somebody addicted to avodah zarah, certainly when he shechts, it's asa b'hana. Ella, this is a very strange Gemara. But we had this once before in avodah zarah. Let me read him. Can you push him into a bar? You let him into a bar, and then you pull away the ladder. This was only noyeg. We could only do this when the Jews were on top. So can you do that? You don't. So the Gemara says, of course you do that. Hashtag Yisrael Maridin, a Jew that converted to Christianity, you would pull away the ladder, let him into the bar, and then pull away the ladder. The goy meboya, certainly a goy, he certainly will do that. Let him into the ladder. So what do you mean? Ein minim be'umas. So the Gemara says, that we accept the carbon, even though you know this person is addicted to avodah zarah, a goy. If he donates a carbon to the base of Migdash, we'll accept it. A Jew that became addicted to avodah zarah, if he donates a goy to the base of Migdash, will not accept it. The Tanya we learned in the Baraisa, not every Jew could bring a carbon. A Yid that converted to Christianity, let's say, will not accept the goy. Only by Jews we make a difference. A goy could always bring a carbon. Says the Gemara, Dilma, how do you know that? Maybe we say that a goy can never bring a carbon. The Tanya, we learned in the Bryce, ish. A goy could make a donation like a regular yid. So a yid that is a Christian, let's say he converted. So then if he decides, I want to donate to the base of Migdash a carbon, will not accept it. A guy, even though we know he's a Christian, and even though we know he's addicted to avodah zarah, comes along Rav Nachman and says, Ein minim ba'im ba'umas, that we're not going to differentiate, and therefore by goyim we're going to accept his carbon no matter what. Then we said Baraisa, when a goy shechts, the Mishnah says Matama b'masa, that it carries the weight of b'masa, that if you touch it and you carry it, it's tamei, right? Matama b'masa. Pshita, kivin the neveli, since it's a disqualified shechting, matama b'masa, certainly it becomes tamei b'masa. Amar Rava said, this is what the Mishnah says. Zu matama b'masa. When the goy shechts, it's nevela and it's matama b'masa. It's regular tamei like an nevela. The yesh l'cha archeresh, you matama afilu ba'oil. Sometimes you can have a dead carcass of an animal that's like a dead body, and it's matama everything in the room. The ezu, what type of dead carcass animal can be matama everything in the room? Zuta karevis avodah zarah. This is if the goy shechted and says, I'm shechting l'shem avodah zarah, or a min, then it would not only be tamei when you touch it or carry it, but everything in the room space will be asa. Because Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira came up with a chiddush that a goy that if you shech something for avodah zarah, it's metama like a dead body, the entire room. So the first way of Rava is saying that our Mishnah is in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Ikad Amri, others say Amar Rava, just the opposite. Hachi Kitani, Zud metama b'masa. Only this is metama b'masa. But even something else is similar to when a goy shechs. And that means that not only is if the goy shechs, it's nevela, But even if he shechted l'shem avodah zara, it would still be an avela. The Mishnah is trying to say both are included, and that's like Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira. And the Mishnah is not in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira. And here we'll end. The Tanya we learned in a brayso. Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira, Rabbi Yehuda ben Seira says, "Menayin, how do I know if a goy l'takroivis avodah zara, goy shechts an animal for avodah zara, shehi metama ba'oil, that animal will metama everything in the room as if it was a dead body." Shenemar, because the pasuk compares shechting to avodah zara. Like Tzamdu leBaal Par, the Jews became addicted to the avodah zara for Baal Par. By Yoichlun, they ate meat zivchei mesim, the animals that were slaughtered that are like dead bodies, like dead human bodies. So there's a juxtaposition between a shechted animal for avodah zara to a dead body, to a dead human body. Ma meis metama ba'oil, just like a dead human body is metama everything in the room. After kroivus avodah zara metama ba'oil, so anything that's shechted for avodah zara will metama everything in the room. So it's a question whether our Mishnah agrees with that idea or not. But either way, we learned something interesting about Jews that are committed to avodah zara versus goyim. Okay, we'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.